What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? Just wanted to take a second here, answer any real estate questions that you guys might have. Just wanted to hop on, answer any real estate questions that you guys might have. Talk about 2025, your goals, what you're looking to do, how I might be able to help you. Any real estate questions? Would love to talk about the market, would love to talk about anything that's on your mind related to real estate would be awesome here on this lovely Wednesday. What is on your mind real estate related? Any questions about the market? You know what? Let's do this then. Let's do this. Let's talk about, just for a quick second, the affordability of real estate in California. Now, take a guess we're going to take a stab in the dark. What would you say the median home price is right now in California? Well, right now in California, I guess that's depending on where you are. If you're in the Bay Area, the median home price is $1.1 million. If you're going to buy a $1.1 million home, your monthly payment would be about $7,200 a month. To afford a $7,200 a month monthly payment, you would need to have household income of $214,800, which less than 15% of California has. So it's definitely not a great thing. Gentleman in the chat says, how do you feel about the real estate with the home prices being high and interest rates still being high? Exactly. This is a problem, right? This is a problem for sure. Even in, the Inland Empire, where you might have a median home price of about $650,000, your payment's still going to be $4,000 a month. Payment's $4,000 a month. You got to make $120,000 a year in order to qualify. So yeah, it is a very interesting thing that house prices have actually stayed quite elevated, despite the fact that interest rates have gone up pretty dramatically. So this is not an ideal situation for the market. It's definitely not an ideal situation for I mean, I guess you could make an argument that for real estate agents, this is a good thing, right? Because for real estate agents, if the average sales price is up, that means the average commissions are going to be higher. This is not the worst thing in the world for the real estate agent, but as a society, I mean, the fact that if you want to buy a house, you have to make $250,000 a year just to afford the median priced home in California isn't good. But the question then becomes, well, what do we do? What do we do about it? And the answer to that is, well, I don't know. I guess there's two things. You could just raise interest rates so much that demand completely falls off a cliff. That's probably not great. The flip side to that is you could build a bunch more houses, which is probably the correct thing to do, right? You don't want interest rates at 8% or 9% or 10%. And by the way, a lot of people look at this and say, well, if you look at interest rates in like 1982, if you look at where interest rates were in 1982, okay, well, rates in 1982 were 16.04% for mortgage interest rates, 16%. And people say, well, the rates aren't that bad, right? Rates are only 6% now. They could be a heck of a lot worse. Look at the 80s. Well, I guess that's okay. That's semi-valid. But also in the 80s, the average sales price wasn't like $900,000 in California. So it is this like seesaw effect that I think we have to bear in mind. Somebody on YouTube says, a lot of Californians are moving here to Arizona. What's left of California is overpriced. That's absolutely true. My wife and I were in Arizona just about a year ago, and we were in Sedona. Man, talk about maybe one of the most beautiful places ever. I mean, Sedona was gorgeous. We went up to the Grand Canyon, and we looked on Zillow while we were there just to see what was out there. And yeah, you can get beautiful homes in great areas. But even here's what's interesting about that. It's also not like, Arizona's like dirt cheap. You're still spending $750,000, $800,000, $900,000. Even in Vegas, right? Vegas, I know a lot of my real estate colleagues have moved from Los Angeles to Vegas, and they've made great real estate careers in Nevada. But even still, right? It's not like the houses are $400,000, $500,000. You're still paying $700,000, $800,000, $900,000 for a home. So it is just really, really, really expensive. So and it's hot, right? Exactly. Yanas on YouTube says, yeah, it's super hot. So I guess the question really becomes, I don't want to turn this into hey, it's existing is expensive, which it is. But still, I mean, the question is, what do we do about affordability? Because it's not just a California problem. It sure does feel to me like an everywhere problem, right? It is just very, very, very expensive to buy anything. And I guess the alternative, I suppose, is you could rent. But if you're renting, In Southern California, you want a two-bedroom place, it's going to be $3,500 a month. So, but I want to hear about what thoughts you guys have about the market, what you're seeing out there um, in your area. See you, gentlemen. Good to see you on Instagram, my man. Talk to you real soon. There's also, just on a side note, there are a handful of new rules that have come into effect in California over the last year. One thing that was interesting that passed in California was that before, you would need a contractor's license in order to do any work over $500. That's now been up to $1,000. So now you can be an unlicensed contractor and do work on a property. There's some guardrails around that, but that's up to $1,000 now. Um, God, also obviously the big news, and I guess it's old news, but it's big news still, is that we need buyer representation agreements signed before we can close any property. That's an important one. Um, what else is some real estate news? What else is some real estate news going on here? Uh, Pamela in the chat says, I'm seeing more multifamily generational homes again, families coming together to buy. Yeah, this is a big thing. In fact, there is a builder here in Southern California called Lennar. And Lennar, I think, was building for a good little while some next generation housing where all the properties that they were building had like a little, I don't want to call it a mother-in-law quarters, but had a little like separate entrance, 800 square feet, separate kitchen, because all the houses have gotten so expensive that kids are living with mom and dad till their mid 20s, late 20s, early 30s. So yeah, you do see a lot of this sort of next generation multifamily houses being built architecturally. Rent went up during COVID, Yana says. That's absolutely true. People are still buying, Ismail says. People from LA moving toward Riverside, which is way cheaper than LA. So what we may see is really expensive as a steal, for sure. For sure. I mean, the Inland Empire is hot, right? Not just as a market, but it's just warm. But yeah, I mean, you're going to spend $1 million in Los Angeles and get a 1950s, mid-century 3-bedroom, 1-bath, or you could come out to Riverside, San Bernardino, and get, a home that's only 20 or 30 years old, that's bigger and probably in a safer area for a heck of a lot less. So for sure, Murrieta is becoming super popular. What you got to be careful of in Murrieta, Temecula, Chino Hills, a lot of these areas are the property taxes, right? These newer communities, they're Eastvale, these newer communities, they're a heck of a lot more affordable, but the property taxes are a lot higher because you have Mello-Roos and all these special assessments that kind of do a number on affordability. And the problem with that too is that generally you can't write the Mello-Roos off unless you can show that the Mello-Roos is like directly related to something on site, which it often is, and it's often for offsite improvements. You might not be able to write off the Mello-Roos. That is a challenge. Yeah, it's always good to have in-laws and parents close by, especially if you're um, you have kids, you have young kids, you're gonna see that. Annie on Instagram, good to see you. Good to see you. Hopefully you're doing well. Um, Lake Elsinore is improving a lot. They're fixing the lake and have great plans. Lake Elsinore is wonderful. One place I've always wanted to maybe pick up a piece of real estate is in by Lake Matthews in Riverside County. Lake Matthews is also gorgeous. Yeah, and it's not that expensive. The other thing that in Arizona, you're talking about insurance. Yeah, God, talk about insurance getting super expensive. Yeah, I mean, if you can get insurance, because a lot of the insurers, as you know, this is not new news, aren't even willing to write policies in California. And when they are willing to write policies, they're astronomical. I have a buddy of mine who bought a house in the canyons in LA. Thank goodness he wasn't affected by the fire, but he was telling me his insurance is like $7,000 or $8,000 a year. I mean, just outrageous. Very, 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 very expensive. And then, the horrific thing about these fires is that I think a lot of people were finding out that they were underinsured. They didn't check their policies close enough, and they just found out, hey, we don't have the coverage to rebuild. I have a business partner of mine in Lahaina in Hawaii. And one thing that he was telling me is that if you go to Lahaina, I've not been there, but he's telling me that in the horrific Hawaii fires last year, a year or two ago, you have a lot of people that they have their land and they've just parked an RV on their land, and they just live in their RV on the site of their old house. It's just absolutely horrible. So yeah, we got to check. You got to check the policies and make sure that you actually have coverage in place. The other question really is, I talked to some new agents a week ago that had just gotten their license, and I asked them, what is your income goal for this first year? And they told me that their income goal, almost to a person, everyone said, I want to make $100,000. And, when I got my real estate license 25 years ago, $100,000 like meant something. I make six figures now. I've done something. Today, if you're just renting a place and your rent is $3,000 a month, you make $100,000 a year, you take home, let's say 70 post-tax. Let's say you had 15, 20K of expenses against that. Let's say you take home 50. That's like $4,000 a month. If your rent's 3,000, 100,000 isn't enough, right? Even to live. So the question, of course, is, well, how much money do you really need to make as a new real estate agent or as a real estate agent in order to be able to put food on the table for your family and make a living? 100,000 just isn't going to cut it anymore. It's 175, 200, and then you kind of feel like you're not treading water anymore. But yeah, it just is what it is. It is what it is. Ismo says, I'm sure a lot of investors are buying people out for the land. Here's what's crazy about that, because it's a great point. There's already 2 real estate agents in and around Los Angeles. LA has these rules against price. California has these rules against price gouging. Maybe it's true in other parts of the United States, but LA has these rules against price gouging that say basically when you have a disaster area like the fires, clearly a disaster area, you cannot raise prices more than 10%. There's a very prominent real estate agent in La Cañada, Flint Ridge. If you don't know where La Cañada is, it's a very expensive area, about 20 minutes outside of Pasadena. And he has been accused, along with one other real estate agent, of buying, of renting property in a disaster area for way more than is allowed. He, of course, says this was a clerical error or a misunderstanding, and that it wasn't what he was intending on doing. So Ismail on YouTube says, yeah, a lot of investors are buying people out for the land. Actually, until April, you cannot send letters or solicit or advertise in these disaster areas to buy property for less than the market value. So, and it's so crazy. Like, everyone needs to make a living. Everyone has to make money. But to your point, because you're right, buying or offering to buy land from folks that have just lost their homes, the embers aren't even put out, you still have the lot smoldering, and to offer to buy land from someone in a really, really tough situation is just, it's sickening. There's a whole bunch of other ways to make money. There's a lot of other things to invest in. But yeah, a lot of these disaster areas bring out, the greed in people. And, there's a whole bunch of other ways to make money without trying to steal land. Mir Sadula says, I'm finishing my last real estate course next month. Any recommendations for the exam, and where should I start after getting my license? The question is, what state are you in? If you're in California, we have a great course called crashcourseonline.com. You may want to look at that. That site will totally prepare you for the real estate test in California. And then you're welcome to send me an email. I'd love to, if you're local to California, I can recommend some offices that you can work in. And to your point, the question really is, where should you start? I think that really depends on what your definition of success is, because success in real estate can mean so many different things to so many different people. I'll give you an example. There are some people that take our real estate class that want to get a real estate license, and all they want to do is buy their own home. That's all they want to do is buy their own property. That would be success to them. Hey, if I could just buy my own house, that would be a success for me. Other people are like, hey, I freaking hate my job. I hate my boss. I just can't stand what I do for a living. Success for me would mean replacing my income, and going to do something else. Some people say, hey, I just want real estate as a side hustle. I don't want to make $1 million a year. Really, all I want to do is have a good side hustle. And for folks like that, just sell 1 or 2 properties there. I had some students of mine that were in Manhattan Beach. There was a handful of these folks that basically were members at this local tennis club here in Manhattan Beach. And they would do 3 or 4 deals a year, 3 or 4 transactions a year, and all they would do is sell to people at their tennis club. And in Manhattan Beach, average sales price is a couple $1,000,000. And for them, they do 2 deals a year. They make 40 grand on each one. They make $80,000 a year playing tennis and having fun with their friends, and that's success. So the question really becomes, what do you want to do once you get your license? What does success look like to you? For someone like me, I've never had an actual job. I've always been kind of in and around real estate. For me, success is, hey, I want to make a lot of money selling real estate, investing in real estate, doing real estate classes. Like, this is my full-on career. This is what I've dedicated my professional life to. So, and that's my definition of success. Your definition might be something different. So I guess I would ask you, what do you want to do? Like, what ultimately do you want to do with your license? Yana says a 4 to 5 person family that lives comfortably spends $200K a year on food, bills, vacations. 100%. Yeah, I mean, you just go out to eat. Now, I hate that this is the theme of this live, but it's so true. Just going out to eat, like you and one other person go to freaking, Rubio's to get tacos. It's $50. I mean, yeah. So passive income. If you want to make passive income, which is a great goal, the question is, can you get passive income just doing what you're doing now? Like, if you have a regular job, you make whatever you make and just take that money and invest it. Could you get a good life and make a bunch of investments? Because banks are a heck of a lot more willing to lend to someone who has consistent, reliable W-2 income than to someone. Give me one second, guys. Hang on. Sorry about that. Had to plug in my a laptop here. Yana says, I really want to flip a few houses, buy some rental properties, maybe Airbnb a couple. Sure. So, by the way, that's amazing, right? So I think you've identified that, hey, for you, it doesn't, just from what you wrote, I could be reading this wrong, but for you, success doesn't mean like selling 60, 70, 80 houses a year as a monster realtor. Success for you would be like, hey, I want to invest, right? I want to be an investor. I don't want to drive people around in my car and door knock and cold call and, try to get a bunch of listings. It sounds like success for you means, hey, I want to be a real estate investor. So if that's the case, I would basically really focus my time, energy, and efforts on, okay, like, how many properties do I want to accumulate? How much cash do I need to do that? And by the way, since you've written that as a goal, what you want to be super duper ultra careful of is spending a bunch of money on all these real estate courses on like how to invest and how to wholesale and flip. And I'm not saying those are like invalid, but it is really easy to blow up, 8,000, 9,000, 10,000 hours on some BS course and some BS mentorship that doesn't mean anything. So just be careful, especially when you start telling people that, hey, I want to be a flipper, I want to be an investor. Trust me, you're going to have a whole bunch of people that are going to come out of the woodwork, or just stuff that you're scrolling on Instagram and YouTube, and don't just be careful. Don't get sucked into blowing all your money on courses that, talk about 1985. I hear a lot of people talking about, oh, here's how you assume loans. Assuming loans is very difficult. Most loans have alienation clauses in them that prohibit that, where the lender can call the loan due if you transfer the property. So if you just spent $1,500 on a course on how to assume a loan, and then you start getting out there in the field and you realize, hey, that's not really a thing, that's going to suck. So, but anyway, I would just make a business plan on how do I invest, right? What is, and by the way, where do I want to invest, and what does that look like? Do I want to invest in California? Do I want to invest out of state? Out of state's compelling because you can get you can get a lot of units. If you go to, for example, if you went to, Iowa, in Des Moines, you might be able to get, 3 times the units that you'd be able to get in LA. But the question becomes, well, how do you find a management company to manage it from LA and Iowa? How do you make sure they don't steal from you? How do you make sure you don't get hustled? These are all like legitimate concerns if you're investing out of state. So just bear that in mind. Sorry, I know that was a long-winded thing, but Iswell says, I haven't got my license yet, but I'm working on it currently. I make $100K a year and feel like I'm barely making it. Exactly. I want this to replace my job. Yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, that is the theme of today, right? We need to do more, make more, do more, all that. My friend did that, flip 2 houses out of state. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Let me show you guys one more thing here that I think might be interesting to you. And then I'll hop. I don't want to keep you guys here all night, but I do want to show you. I can't share my screen here, but I want to give you guys this graph. It's kind of crazy. And you can probably look this up in your state also. But this is, if you look at, let me share this with you. I'm going to paste this in the chat because there's a couple of assumptions that this makes. So here's one. So when we look at like the number of people that could afford the median priced home, right now it's roughly about 16% of California. Roughly right now, 16% of California can afford the median priced home, which is just about $900,000. The methodology to get to 16% is, number one, you have to be able to put 10% down. Number two, you have to make enough money to support the payment. The payment is about, call it $5,500 a month right now. So to be able to afford the median priced home, you need to have about $90,000 down, and you would have to make over $200,000 a year just to afford the median priced home. So I'm going to try to come on these lives a little more regularly, just to kind of talk real estate, and just because I love it, and I love seeing, especially on YouTube, all these people here. It's so nice to be able to spend some time with you. But any questions about or an Instagram? Any questions about real estate or anything that you're seeing out there in your market that might be interesting? By the way, one thing I'll say to Ismail is, oh, thank you, Priscilla. Appreciate that. Good to see you on today. Ismail says, "Hey, I make $100K a year. I want to replace my job here." I'll tell you a quick story, and then we can hop. But I had a student of mine who made about $200,000 a year running a nail salon, and this is one of my favorite stories. And she took our real estate class, got her license, and said the same thing. I want I want to replace my job at the nail salon. The nail salon was very, very, very busy for her. She was there all the time and, worked 7 days a week. And it was it was really tough on her and for her family also. So she gets her real estate license, and her first year, she's a super hard worker. Her first year, she makes like 70,000 bucks. Second year, she makes 110,000. By the third year, she had made more money selling real estate than she had made at the nail salon. So she calls me up and says, Karthik, I did it. I've replaced my income. I'm going to leave. I'm going to leave the nail salon. I'm still going to own it, but I hired a manager, and I'm going to go sell real estate full time. Her first year selling real estate full time, she made less money than when she was at the nail salon. A year and a half later, her business had really taken a little bit of a hit, or big hit. And she calls me up and she tells me the story, and she says, hey, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. So I said, hey, do me a favor, make a list of every deal you did over the last 3 years and write down who you sold that property to, how much money you made, and where the lead came from, right? Where did you get the client? She makes this list of like the 40 or 45 properties she had sold over the last year. And it turns out that like nearly every deal she did came from the nail salon. So the paradigm shift in her mind was, hey, if I just focus on real estate full time, I'll make more money. And that might be true, but the biggest lesson really is like, this whole real estate business is a complete lead generation business. It's a top of funnel business. That's it. How many leads can you get at the top of funnel, and how many can you get to drop out the bottom? And what she found out, of course, as you know now, hearing the story, is that all her business came from the salon. So the wanting to replace your job is amazing, right? And you probably could do that if you focused, for sure. But there's one of my favorite books, or one of my favorite stories, is a story called Acres of Diamonds. And in Acres of Diamonds, there's this. I don't want to spoil it for you if you want to read the book, but basically it's a story about this guy who tells his family, hey, I want to go out and I want to get rich. And he tells his wife and tells his kids, hey, I want to be rich. I want to provide for you. I'm going to go away for a while, for a couple of years, and I'm going to go mine for diamonds. He takes his family fortune and goes away, sails away, to the other side of the world, and tries to mine for diamonds. Comes back 2 years later, completely broke. And he tells his family, I'm so sorry I've failed you guys. I spent our family fortune, and I have come back empty-handed. And they end up having to sell their family ranch. And they sell their family ranch to someone who's also a diamond miner. And the story, of course, is that the person to whom he sold the ranch starts digging on the ranch that they just sold, and finds a bunch of diamonds on the ranch that they sold. And the lesson really is that, a lot of the time, the answers that we're looking for are under our own feet. So anyway, I'll leave you guys with that story. And thank you for allowing me to spend some time with you guys. I really appreciate it. And if you have any questions, hopefully I'll see you guys more often. And, best of luck to you in your real estate career and your investing career. And just wishing you guys all the best and all the luck in the world. And we'll catch you guys another time. Thank you all so much. Thank you. Oh my God, if you're a police officer, or if you're in a firefighter or a nurse, or talk about loyal coworkers, right? I mean, that's great. So, hopefully we'll see you guys another time. Thank you all so much. Take care.